Oh my gosh. Hello, everyone. Parisa here, business whisperer of Sixth Sense Strategy. So excited to have you join me for yet another episode of Badass Bytes. I am so thrilled to be joined today by Haleh Fardi. But before I give her the platform so that she can shine in all of the ways that she should be shining and does shine, let me tell you a little bit more about me and how it is I show up in the world. I love working with hard charging, high performing senior leaders, the types of people that go 80 miles an hour in a 45-mile-an-hour zone. They don't always check to see if their people are strapped in, let alone interested in going on the ride. The reason why they work with me is that they either have an audacious goal they'd like to hit, or there's an iceberg up ahead that they would prefer not to hit. And in either case, the reason why they work with me is that either been in that seat, sat next to people who occupy those seats, or that I currently advise and coach people just like them. And I'm so passionate about these types of leaders because I see the outsized impact that they have on all of us once they finally get out of their own way. So, what I'd like to do is formally introduce Haleh Fardi. She's a dear friend, a dear colleague, one of my favorite badasses. So, Haleh, speak yourself into the room. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Um, I have a lot of people who drive around with me and they're not fastened, seatbelts not fastened, and at 85 miles per hour, I'm just hold on, hold on. But I'm a co-founder and managing partner of ProCFO Partners with my partner Nelson Tepfer. We have we want to disrupt the CFO consulting universe by really leaving behind a framework for financial management and growth. We believe we're fortune tellers. Numbers tell a story. We believe numbers can ignite possibilities. They can tell the future. And our CFOs are incredible men and women who want to partner with entrepreneurs and create the next great company, create the next great product, create the next great experience. That's what we do at ProCFO Partners.
I love it. I loved every single word you used to describe yourself as well as what ProCFO Partners does. But I think my favorite word in all of that is the word disruption. And the reason why that's my favorite word is I like to work with people who I call badasses. They're modern badasses. And what I've done is I've outlined 14 traits about what kind of typifies a badass. And what I'll do is I'll share with everyone the link that they can go to see what I mean about what the 14 traits are. And I just realized, oh no, that is the actually right link. I was just editing as I go. No, that is the right link. There are 14 traits in there of a modern badass. And one of the traits actually is that badasses are disruptors, they're change agents, they are pattern interrupters. But Haleh, the one trait that you and I are going to talk about today, which I think fits you to a T, and I'm so glad you chose this one, is FITFO. So let's share with everyone how it is I have described FITFO. I'm going to share my screen. Just bear with me. All the technology, all the things. Here we go. Here is how we describe FITFO. Modern badasses always figure it the flip out. If you can't solve for something one way, you solve for it another way. You live for challenges and puzzles. And Haleh, I'm so happy you chose this one because like I said, I really think it fits you to a T. You are that person that thrives on challenge. You are that person that thrives on puzzles. You take great joy in solving puzzles as a general matter, but then also solving for puzzles in the service of others. And I've seen you do this 9 bajillion times over. And so with that, share with us how it is that you think about FITFO and why this resonates with you so strongly.
Well, first of all, I didn't know it was flip out.
Well, it is actually another word.
So
It is actually another word.
with me before it was flip. You know,
It was, you've heard me talk about it in when it's just us, and I've used a different word. That is true.
so that's why it resonates with me, because we figure it out. And when you go to, I did some work with you actually, one-on-one, as well as some work at the Oxford Leadership Program. And it was talking about how in order to build and grow a company, you have your company's purpose, but your personal purpose has to be aligned with the company's purpose and vision. And did some work, lots of work with you, a few rounds with you, and also at Oxford. And the definition, the purpose is, my personal purpose is to contribute and create. And in order to do that, you have to solve. Because what are you contributing? Who are you contributing it for? Why are you contributing it? And then what are you creating? And when I look back on 35 years of experience now, it has been that thread, that common thread throughout all of my work experience and also my personal life experience. How do I live the life I dream and do it while I contribute and create? So it resonates, and I do it with, I figure it the F out. I do it with that kind of gusto.
Yeah, gusto, that is a brilliant word to use. Thank you so much for saying that, because it's not a chore for you. It's something that you take pleasure in. It's not only the act of sorting out whatever the issue might be, but then also seeing what the net benefit is for everyone once the work is done. That must be really gratifying for you.
It really is. I was having a conversation just last night. It was a personal conversation. And as you're talking in your last sentence, I thought of it. It was about someone who is contained, and in this conversation I was having is, my God, I don't understand how someone can be contained with love or contributing. It's the only thing that the more you give, we talked about it like Suleiman's table, right? The more you give, the more you get back.
Right.
So that's how I feel about it. This engagement to community and this almost mission beyond vision of being part of that community, a contributing member of that community. And then when you're a community, you have to figure out how to do it together.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, what I'm curious about, everyone FITFOs differently. So my FITFO is different from yours, is different from, your children's FITFO. Um, can you kind of walk us through that if you were to have an out of body experience and like watching yourself FITFO, can you tell us what that feels like, or what that might look like for you?
That's a fantastic question. I didn't expect it. So let me think. I think I FITFO differently every decade of my life and career. If you met me in my 30s and early 40s, I think I FITFO'd like a bulldozer, unstoppable force trying to move an immovable object. And there's a lot of personal currency that goes along with that kind of force to try to convince instead of engage, trying to force instead of collaborate.
Right.
So I believe at that experience level, so much of that comes from lack of confidence and wanting to say, okay, I think this is going to be, let's force it. And then if it fails, we'll learn something. So that has changed for me, but it was a big portion, a big part of how I did it. And I think I no longer FITFO that way anymore. My partner sees my frustration in not doing it that way. So sometimes I want to say, why can't it just be this way? and he's such a good partner in that aspect that he brings awareness to it. For me, it's no longer about force, but it's about understanding. And to create change or to figure it out, you can figure it out. The timing is not always yours. And that's what that force, that it's your conversation. You had a fantastic blog about speed and velocity, and I've used it many, many times. And so I have changed from velocity and my discontent with the speed at which I'm moving towards something to saying I'm okay with the speed.
Yeah, that's interesting. So speed is just, a rate of travel, and velocity is rate of travel in a given direction. And it's almost like you stepped inside my mind, because I was actually going to bring up speed versus velocity. And, kudos to you for recognizing how your business partner complements you in that way, where you're able to see, oh, okay, in as much as speed feels good, velocity might feel better.
And I want to talk about that because, as you said, how did you do it? That kind of force comes when you're doing it alone.
Right.
And since you mentioned as Nelson Tepfer, the reason we can now figure it out together, and a lot of that personal currency is now shared.
Right.
And my God, we're better together. So it's no longer the sum of whatever sum total of us is so much greater than our individual selves.
Yeah.
So now knowing that community and then, 25, 30 CFOs, how much better we are together in figuring it out is this decade of my life. And it's truly been almost a gift and the culmination of we figure it out, but I never figured it out alone. But I didn't need to force them into that collaboration.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I have a two-part question. The first part of the question is, how do you help your clients become comfortable with FITFO? So the reason why they bring you in is that, you have this knowing, you have this seeing of what their overall business model, how their overall business model could be improved within the context of CFO advisory. Not everyone can FITFO the way you do, or they haven't learned that yet. So how do you make your clients comfortable with your ability to FITFO?
So that's very interesting. My clients are FITFO masters. They're all badasses themselves.
Awesome. Okay. Great.
So it's not that I'm helping them figure out how to FITFO. The reason they're talking to me is they're FITFOing. Right? They realize that they've hit a skill wall or they've hit a growth wall, and they need a different lens to look at their business. So it's not much of a convincing. The reason I'm being engaged or talking is because I'm working with badder assers than I am. We're saying I need your lens on the business now.
Or maybe in this case, what they've been doing is speed, and what they're leaning into is velocity.
Maybe. The part that the figuring out part of it for me is when you're working, and it's part of your other 13 items with these dynamic, visionary entrepreneur founders and CEOs, that momentum, remember my force, that momentum.
Yeah.
Okay. I end up becoming this immovable object because their momentum, and I need to say, wait, I know you're going in this direction, but there's these 4 other lanes that we need to look at. And that's how I work with them. It's about an awareness to other options and scenarios, or taking, again, financial information and saying, okay, so now you know the numbers, what should they be? Is one of Nelson's, my favorite sayings of Nelson. Or saying, okay, now that we have the numbers, what could we do with it differently? Because they are on this path. And that's how we figure it out together.
I love that.
We have our partnership.
And so the second part of the question is, obviously you and Nelson have been very careful about curating the CFOs that you have on your team. You're incredibly deliberate, and they are also deliberate about whether or not that they are a fit for you as well. So it's an interview process and all of that. How do you encourage the development of the FITFO muscle with the CFOs that are part of ProCFO partners?
Oh, so, first of all, as I mentioned, I'm humbled by the caliber and quality of the CFOs. I want to disencourage them from FITFOing. Because imagine I have a company of CFOs who want to FITFO. They all have, I'm sure many of them are very gracious about not telling me how we could do it better. And many of them, so we encourage them, but through workshops as we're further developing our framework, we make sure that we're sitting with them and we have their input. We invest a lot of time into ensuring that we have their insight and their input, when we value it greatly, because we're an organization of CFOs. And then, of course, like any other entrepreneur, we also have a plan. So we have to make sure that, yes, we're going in this lane, and yes, there are 3 other lanes, but there are not 12 other lanes that I can participate in right now. So it's such a fine line balance. To see how do we do it? So
so that brings up another question: is when does FITFO work against you?
We've talked about this. I think pivoting is a dangerous word when people say pivot. And I know it's the word of 2021 and 2020.
But especially the word of the 20th century or 21st century, excuse me, it feels like.
So I think this is when it becomes dangerous. And if we're going to use it like sailing tack, and you're pivoting, you could end up in South America, right? So I think when it becomes dangerous is when you're figuring it out, but you don't have your ultimate goal. You're not coming from a goal. So you're figuring it out and you're actually untethered. That's when it becomes dangerous. You have to have land in sight of what it is you're trying to figure out and pivot against that. And what happens is, yes, extraordinary things like last year happen, but still that true objective of the business, your personal goals, you still need to be in touch with that. And if you're not, it becomes dangerous.
I love that you said that. That was a great analogy. I love that. Brilliant. And of course, you brought that up brilliantly because you're brilliant. Well, what that reminds me of is, I know in real life you love puzzles. I have seen any number of pictures that you've posted on either Instagram or Facebook, and the times that I've been to your adorable home, I have seen the beginnings. There we go. I've seen the beginnings of a puzzle, and to this idea of knowing what the goal is, starting with the end in mind. It's the same thing with puzzles. You start with the edges first, is in a puzzle, because that is like your boundaries. So you have an idea of where the edges are, as opposed to starting in the middle where it gets really muddled. So you can't go any farther than an edge of a puzzle. And you know what all the edge pieces look like. There are 4 corner pieces. Don't bother looking for the corner pieces at first. Bother looking for the edges, and then you're in business. And I feel like what you just said of, pivot, you could end up in South America. Understanding where it is that you're going with your business then determines the boundaries of what you FITFO and how often you FITFO. How true is that?
It's very true. It's very close for a certain type of puzzle. And that is what I love about what we do. Some puzzles, you have to start with color groupings, not the edges, because it's so complicated. There is no edge. So it really, if we're using that analogy, it's, yes, we're putting a puzzle together. We have an image, but sometimes you just have to look and see what colors do we have and what's similar. There are puzzles now that are in shape of eagles and whatnot, and you don't even know what you're doing. I don't know if you've seen the round puzzle that's just blue. It's just a blue marble. And I'm like, oh, that's not a puzzle. That's madness and dreaming.
That's torture.
That's torture, but it exists. So,
and here I was being conventional and thinking of only square or rectangular, other like shapes that have like edges. But you're right. If it's a circle,
what you do, because I'm a puzzler, I know it, and or wooden puzzles or whatnot. It really comes about if I'm working with a client or an entrepreneur or what we really go internal and we really say, what are we trying to accomplish here? And Parisa, in puzzling, for me, it's meditation. I'm trying to accomplish meditation so I don't get frustrated with not finding the corner piece. So we really work with our clients to see what are we trying to achieve here and how do we solve for that.
I love that. And I would like to know, this sounds like it's a segue. It really isn't. What made you sort out how you were going to FITFO working on ProCFO partners full-time while doing a month in Croatia? How did you FITFO all of that?
It's a good segue because I'm still jet lagged. Otherwise, I would look a lot better.
You look great. You look great as usual.
Yeah, I just returned. How did I do it? And it was the lesson. This is actually a great example of FITFO. I went to create time to create. And the interesting thing, the lesson out after that 28 days was I went there with myself, the way I work. And so it doesn't matter where I'm working. If I'm going to work in a way that doesn't create space, it doesn't matter where I am. And so what that was about is where do we go where we can change status quo? We can change patterns. And the clarity that comes out of changing patterns because of the time difference, walking to town in the morning becomes this creative time block that allows for the company that we're building. And Nelson and I got a call this morning in 2023. Yeah. So what it did was give us, there's a book that's called Hustle and Float. What it did was allow to change a pattern to allow for creativity to come in. And the reason for the creativity was, like many entrepreneurs that are building business, you end up in this in this wheel with your daily operations. And I had to break out of that wheel in order to be able to look at 2023.
Yeah, it's you get so caught up in the thing that you forget to take a couple of steps back to say, what does working on the thing look like? And it becomes easy to it's like being in a whirlpool. You're circling, and you don't always have the perspective. And so you physically took yourself out of your space and you flew halfway across the world to change your perspective, have a different experience. And by virtue of that different experience, you were likely able to see things in new and fresh ways that you found exciting.
Yeah, so absolutely. This organization is an organization. We had 4 attorneys, 7 entrepreneurs. There were 40 of us at this organization. And so they asked me to do the goals and strategies workshop that I do because I'm working. There's what are you doing? They're listening to me. So we did this work on goals and strategy workshop for, she was a member of the Red Cross executive board, is sitting there in this. An entrepreneur is sitting in it who has, 3 different businesses, including one nonprofit that staffs 50 people. And we have another attorney in it who is running the organization. So among others. So as we're having the conversation, it's a goals and strategy workshop. It's very personal. So I do this for companies. I don't do it for multiple different people. So this is how getting out of creating something new. We have this workshop. At the end of it, we go to lunch because you can in Croatia. You can go take a 2-hour lunch. So why not?
Why not?
So we go to lunch, and Helena Novic, who is incredible, sits down, runs into lunch because she's running this whole organization, runs down, sits down, and jokingly, she was very moved at the workshop, closes her eyes and says, "Can we all take a moment of silence for unnecessary dreams that just died?" So this is out of a goals and strategy workshop. It reminded me of a very famous quote, and later we can add who said it, who said, one of the worst things you can do in business is improve on a system that shouldn't be there in the first place. So her treatment of take a moment for unnecessary dreams that just died, so the bittersweetness of that, reminded me that we're not there as CFOs to improve on a system that shouldn't be there in the first place.
That's exactly right.
And that's what Croatia did. If I had one takeaway other than I can't even begin to tell you about the food there, But
you will, because I'm going to Croatia next year. So you and I are going to catch up on all the things that you ate or that you wished you ate.
Yes. It realigned us to us figuring it out, that are we implementing a framework that's necessary? And that took us to 2023. Yes, it is. It actually reinforced what we're doing. And that clarity took away some of the strife and the angst of being a business owner.
I love that. So, Haleh, what is one piece of advice you can give to people about FITFO? Anyone who might be watching this live now, or we're going to have the recording available later on the Sixth Sense Strategy YouTube channel, and you'll be able to share it with other people as well. What's a piece of advice you'd like to share with people about FITFO?
Have flipping fun.
Thank you.
So
yes,
fun. Yeah, absolutely. It's always been fun. It's always been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things that I have told people that I absolutely love to do, and I think you feel the same way too, is one of the best things ever is to stand in front of a whiteboard with dry erase markers that work, as well as an eraser, to say, what could the world look like?
Yeah.
Let's just play. Every idea is fair game until such time we decide that every idea is not fair game. Just leaning into that creativity and the joy of it, I think is such an important piece of advice that you shared with everyone. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
You're very welcome. We did a workshop, an 8-hour workshop during COVID, remote. One person in Brazil, one person in Texas, 3 of us in a conference room. One of the owners of the company who was in Texas is, the executive, the sales executive. The last thing he wanted to do with a broken Achilles, he had a torn Achilles, so he was in bed with a 2 or 3-year-old over his head, was 8 hours of a meeting like this.
Right.
And at the end of it, he said that felt like one.
Wow.
So we're having fun.
Nice.
And we're figuring it out. And it was wonderful. It was joyous.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. This has been an amazing conversation. If anyone would like to reach out to Haleh directly, this is her email address I've shared at the bottom of the screen. And if you're looking to learn a little bit more about ProCFO Partners, this is their website. It's a lot of fun. It's engaging. I've been to that website more times than I remember. And if someone would like to send me a love note, here's how you can find me, parisa@sixthsensestrategy.com. Haleh, thank you so much for a really powerful, wonderful conversation today. I always enjoy the time that I spend with you. I always learn something valuable from you. I so appreciate you.
Thank you. It's mutual.
All right, everyone. This video will be available on the Sixth Sense Strategy YouTube channel. And wishing everyone a wonderful rest of the day. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.